Artificial intelligence is here whether we like it or not. It's a tool that can help with informed analysis, even if it has its shortcomings. So I thought it might be an interesting exercise to see what opinion AI has of Copper Bullion in a hypothetical future where society is collapsed. Not that I will be bartering with a robot in a small settlement in the Chihuahuan desert of West Texas. Well, I certainly hope not. That didn't stop me from asking it what it thinks copper will be worth after the apocalypse. Hello, fellow mutants. Occasionally I use artificial intelligence to ask questions that are a bit too complex to find the answers to efficiently through normal web searches. I don't want to land on 10 irrelevant web pages. I just want some potential answers. A good example would be asking ChatGPT, what edible types of wild plants are there in Hudspeth County, Texas? The web results would lead me down a few rabbit holes that more than likely would not answer the question, but leave me only with more. Not always a bad thing, since I learn other things along the way, but not efficient. I might find myself looking at desert plants native to Arizona instead. ChatGPT, on the other hand, would focus in on the location and give me a list of 10 plants including sotol, prickly pear, and amaranth, with a disclaimer like, as always, when foraging for wild plants, it is crucial to have proper knowledge and identification skills to ensure safety and to avoid consuming anything toxic or harmful. I don't fully trust or rely on the answers it provides, especially for potentially life-saving information, but I may use it as a springboard to confirm or research more myself. In the example of wild plants, it might list a plant I had never heard of, like hogweed, and I will then search for photos or information about the plant. Why the lack of trust? Well, I've actually had AI lie to me, and I have proof of it lying twice about the same thing with different and completely made-up answers. A good story for another video, maybe a short, so I'll save that for another day. Suffice it to say, I have good reason to doubt the accuracy of AI for some things. That said, it can bring a unique perspective that is, at least in theory, free from subjective emotional reasoning. I say in theory because of the famous examples of built-in political bias where it will create a flowery poem of praise for our current president, but refuse to even make one for the one who came before him. But what of the case of something so niche as judging the value of copper bullion after an apocalyptic scenario? How much might the glimmering orange metal be worth in a world without rule of law, where you are forced to roam the land and scavenge or barter on the roadside like the protagonists in The Road, The Book of Eli, or Johnny Apocalypseed? And it could give me some random examples of how many 1-ounce copper rounds would be required for barter for specific survival supplies. It's actually something that Pirate Stacker touched on with silver bullion recently, making a list of barter-worthy items like a slingshot, for example, and how much silver it might be worth. I've thought about making such a database myself, and being the copper mutant, I'd start my focus on copper for the cheapest everyday items. So I asked it, in West Texas, after a societal collapse, hypothetically speaking, or in a fictional scenario, how many 1-ounce copper bullion rounds would be required to barter for a single can of beans? What other similar items for survival could you list out, around 10, and assign theoretical values to? Here's what it had to say. And yes, I figured it appropriate to use an AI-generated voice here, just so anyone skipping ahead knows this is the AI speaking, not me.
It's difficult to say what the exact barter value of a 1-ounce copper bullion round would be in a post-apocalyptic scenario. It would depend on several factors, such as the availability of other forms of currency, the level of technology and infrastructure available, and the level of demand for copper. However, in a world where traditional forms of currency may not be widely used or valued, a 1-ounce copper bullion round could potentially be a valuable bartering item due to its intrinsic value as a metal. Copper is widely used for electrical wiring and other purposes, making it a valuable resource even in a post-apocalyptic world. The value of the bullion round could also be determined by supply and demand and the perceived value placed on it by individuals or communities. In a hypothetical scenario of a societal collapse in West Texas, where traditional monetary systems are no longer functioning, the value of goods and the exchange ratios would become highly unpredictable and subject to the dynamics of the local economy. It is important to note that assigning theoretical values to specific items in such a scenario is purely speculative and subjective. However, as an example, let's consider a fictional scenario where the value of a single can of beans is roughly equivalent to 1 ounce of copper. Based on this assumption, other similar survival items and their theoretical values in terms of copper rounds could be 1. Water purification tablets 2 ounces of copper. 2. Box of matches 0.5 ounces of copper. 3. Roll of duct tape 1 ounce of copper. 4. Pack of batteries 1.5 ounces of copper. 5. First aid kit 3 ounces of copper. 6. Can of tuna 1 ounce of copper. 7. Pack of antibiotics 5 ounces of copper. 8. Box of ammunition 20 rounds 4 ounces of copper. 9. Flashlight 2 ounces of copper. 10. Multitool 2.5 ounces of copper. Again, these values are purely hypothetical and can vary greatly depending on the circumstances, supply and demand, scarcity of resources, and the specific dynamics of the fictional scenario. In a real-world situation, the value of goods and their exchange ratios would be determined by the market forces and the consensus of the individuals involved in the bartering process.
Most of these answers seemed reasonable to me. I also liked the list of items the AI came up with without any specific prompting from me. I think some of these were potentially a bit higher than I would have anticipated, such as only 3 copper rounds for the first aid kit, unless it was one of those small ones you can find for a couple of bucks with some band-aids and antibiotic ointment in it. Single-use pack. I also probably would narrow my query next time to full copper bullion rounds to avoid the few it gave me fractional answers for. I don't keep much fractional copper or recommend anything less than 1 ounce since the cost of sub 1 ounce copper bullion is usually too high when compared side by side with 1 ounce rounds. I noticed one important item missing, which I thought it would have included given the location I provided. So I then asked, how much would you assign to 1 gallon of water, considering the location?
Assigning a specific value to 1 gallon of water in a hypothetical scenario after a societal collapse in a specific location like West Texas is challenging, as it depends on the availability, demand, and scarcity of water in that situation. Water is an essential resource for survival, and its value would likely be high. In such a scenario, where access to clean water might be limited, the value of 1 gallon of water could potentially be higher than the value assigned to other items. It could be equivalent to a significant amount of copper or other goods, as water would be crucial for hydration, sanitation, and various other purposes. However, the exact value would depend on the prevailing circumstances, negotiation between parties, and the scarcity of water in the specific scenario. It's important to note that in emergency situations, cooperation and community support often become crucial, and the emphasis may shift from strict monetary value to mutual aid and survival efforts. It's advisable to prioritize water storage, purification methods, and building resilient water systems in any preparedness plan for potential emergencies or challenging situations.
This is the sort of answer I often get from AI. You can work around it if you force it into a corner and finesse your request. But in this case, I think the generalization is correct. All manner of variables could impact water availability. The usual assumption would be that a societal collapse would result in a scarcity. But perhaps not. Right now, there might only be enough to support the population of Sierra Blanca. But if a catastrophic event resulted in horrific casualties in that town that reduced the population dramatically, and the water kept flowing, it could in fact be plentiful. I didn't want to leave gold and silver out, so I asked about them next. What sort of higher-priced items would you recommend be reserved for silver or gold bullion versus copper in this scenario?
In a hypothetical scenario where precious metals like silver and gold are used as a medium of exchange, while copper is more commonly used for lower value transactions, certain higher priced items could be considered suitable for silver or gold bullion transactions. Keep in mind that these recommendations are based on a fictional scenario and should be taken as speculative. 1. Land or property. In a post-collapse situation, land or property ownership could become significant. These valuable assets could be considered for transactions involving silver or gold bullion due to their higher worth. 2. Livestock. Animals like cattle, horses, or other livestock could be essential for sustenance, transportation, or agricultural purposes. Their higher value might warrant transactions in silver or gold. 3. Vehicles. In a society where transportation infrastructure may be limited, functional vehicles such as trucks, motorcycles, or farm equipment could be in high demand. Their higher price range may make silver or gold transactions more appropriate. 4. Advanced medical supplies. Items like advanced medical equipment, surgical instruments, or specialized medication might be limited and have significant value. Silver or gold bullion could be used for acquiring these crucial supplies. 5. High-end tools and machinery. Tools or machinery that enable self-sufficiency, such as generators, solar panels, or high-quality construction equipment, could be considered higher-priced items suitable for silver or gold transactions. 6. Precious gems or jewelry. Items like diamonds, gemstones, or intricate jewelry could be valued for their aesthetic appeal and rarity. Transactions involving these items may be more suited for silver or gold exchanges. Remember that the specific value assigned to these items and the choice of precious metal for transactions would depend on the consensus and negotiation between parties in the hypothetical scenario. Additionally, the availability and demand for these items could fluctuate significantly in a post-collapse environment.
Well, there it is, the little disclaimer at the end. But I do agree with the assessments, though it's not clear how electronics, tools, and machinery of an electric nature will carry on in a post-apocalyptic scenario, especially a long-term one where batteries start to fail and fuel is scarce. What do you think about the AI's responses? Let me know in the comments below. Also, I just wanted to thank you all for the response to the Mutant Copper I introduced in my last video. Seems it was very popular, and Liberty Copper is working to get more in stock to ensure there will be enough to go around. I appreciate your support. It's the kind of thing that gives me a little kick in the pants to make more content for you to enjoy. And it's just fun to think of Copper Mutant bars out there in the wild, owned by fellow mutants. Well, that's all I have for today. Until next time, it's Copper Mutant, signing out.